Picture sitting on your couch on a Sunday afternoon. You open up the investment app you downloaded 18 months ago because you read you were supposed to be responsible with your money. You look at your balance and it's sitting at something like $4,200. You put money in every month, you haven't touched it, but looking at that number, you feel absolutely zero excitement, just a vague, hollow feeling. When we talk about financial mistakes in our 20s and 30s, we usually talk about loud errors, like raffle up credit card debt or buying too much house. But the most dangerous traps are actually psychological and completely silent. Compounding is the single most powerful financial force in human history. Yet during the first decade of your wealth-building journey, that mathematical force manages to feel entirely invisible. Because you cannot immediately see this math working, your brain gets impatient. It naturally starts inventing perfectly logical-sounding reasons to interrupt the process. Surviving a decades-long investment timeline means we have to map out these specific psychological traps right now, anticipating them before they trigger total self-sabotage. The first trap triggers at year zero. People often look at their budget, realize they can only afford $100 or $200 a month, and decide to wait until they have a higher salary to put in what they consider real money. Let's test that logic by looking at a 25-year-old who starts investing just $500 a month into a broad index fund, averaging a 10% annual return. This chart shows the growth over 30 years. She contributes $180,000 cash, but her account grows to nearly $1 million, over $800,000 generated by math. But watch what happens when you delay starting. Waiting a few years doesn't just subtract initial contributions. Because of how math scales, you wipe out the massive exponential growth curve at the very end of your life. Every investor is trying to reach the inflection point. That is the specific year when the returns generated by the market actually start to exceed your own manual monthly deposits. Every single year you spend waiting on the sidelines pushes that vital inflection point further out of reach. By delaying, you guarantee that you will have to do all the heavy lifting yourself. Once you finally start, you enter the slog. During the first few years of investing, the mathematical reality is agonizingly slow. The vast majority of your account growth is going to come from your manual contributions, not from compounding. This chart shows how frustrating that feels. If you invest $300 a month for a year at a 10% return, you put a massive $3,600 of cash in, and the market only gives you about $200 in actual growth. This mathematical boredom creates a severe vulnerability. You are manually packing a snowball with freezing hands, standing at the top of a hill that isn't helping you roll it yet. So you start looking for high dopamine shiny objects, like random crypto tokens, or a friend who is flipping houses. You look at your slow, boring index fund, and you compare it to a story you read online about someone turning $10,000 into $200,000 on a lucky stock pick. The gap between your reality and their overnight success feels impossible to bridge. This is exactly where most people quit. They get completely impatient during the packing phase, stop contributing to reliable funds, and try to day trade or chase fast money instead. The brutal irony is that they quit right before the snowball gets big enough for the hill to take over. Abandoning your strategy during the slog prevents you from ever reaching the slope where momentum does the work. If you can survive the boredom of the early years, you still have to face the most dangerous event on a 30-year timeline, a severe, inevitable market downturn. The mathematical drop in your portfolio's value during a crash is terrifying to look at, but that temporary decline does not actually destroy your long-term wealth. The real danger is entirely in your own head. A crash triggers an intense emotional response, usually panic, that tricks you into selling your assets to stop the bleeding. This chart shows the anatomy of a catastrophic failure. When you panic sell, you lock in your temporary losses, and you completely miss the eventual recovery. Worst of all, you break the compounding chain, and your portfolio permanently flatlines. To defend yourself against this, you have to change what you measure. Stop tracking your market returns, which are an outcome you have zero control over. Start tracking your inputs, your savings rate, your consistency, and the number of months you invest without skipping a beat. Surviving market crashes requires completely divorcing your emotional state from the temporary dollar amount on your screen. You have to trust the process rather than obsessing over the current score. If you stick to your inputs, you eventually arrive at the after state. You hit that inflection point, the mathematical machine finally takes over the heavy lifting, and you get to just ride along as the snowball rolls itself down the hill. Compounding math doesn't fail young investors. What fails them is their own inability to tolerate the long, quiet timeline it takes to work. The best way to protect your timeline is to entirely automate your investment contributions and then delete the apps from your phone. You have to physically remove human emotion and hesitation from the system. True wealth is achieved not by finding a brilliant shortcut or a lucky stock pick. It is built by setting up a reliable mathematical machine, feeding it consistently, and having the patience to just step out of its way.